A Como Park High technology teacher was recently assaulted by two students who are now facing criminal charges. Senator David Brown, a Republican from Becker, believes the students should also be facing mandatory expulsion, and he now joins us in the studio. Welcome, Senator.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So what prompted this legislation?
Well, a lot of what I've been reading in the news about what teachers having to face on the job, and I just don't think it's acceptable. We have the reverse in Minnesota, where we set a statewide standard where a teacher cannot, lay a hand on a student, and I just think it makes sense that we have a statewide minimum for what's going to happen to a student if they decide to assault a teacher.
Do you think that expelling a student would actually be a deterrent for the student?
Well, whether it deters them or not, I don't know, but they need to know there's going to be a consistent consequence for their actions if they decide to do something like assault a teacher that they shouldn't be doing.
Right. Certainly workplaces, both for teachers and students,
Yes.
should be safe. How do you feel about why should it be mandatory? Why couldn't the school board make that decision on a case-by-case basis?
Well, we have a mandatory, that State High School League has a mandatory if an official is assaulted, mandatory of what happens to them. If a student brings a firearm to school, just bringing a firearm to school, it's a mandatory 1-year expulsion. So I think it's logical to say if they assault a teacher that they are expelled. The school board would be the ones to determine how long that expulsion is, but I think we need to set a standard to protect our teachers.
So, don't you think parents should be involved in this decision?
I would hope parents are going to be involved. I know when I grew up, if I had come home and told my dad that I assaulted a teacher, I knew what would happen to me. And maybe that's part of the problem. I don't know that we have that respect for authority like we did a generation or two ago. But I would hope that parents are involved, and I would hope that parents would say that's just not acceptable behavior.
So what about a kid that maybe has a rough home life and he's not getting the support from his parents and now he's been expelled from school? What's that kid going to do?
Well, keep in mind, if he's expelled from school, it's because he assaulted a teacher.
Right.
And we need to teach this generation that's not acceptable behavior. What's that teacher going to do if they have to face having that student back in their classroom when they know that student, if we don't do something, if we don't set a minimum standard for what happens with that type of behavior, that student can be back in that teacher's classroom the next day, and how does that teacher know they're not going to face the same incident day after day if we don't set a standard of what we're going to do?
Sure, but then what does happen to that student? Where do they go? I mean, they're maybe too old or too young to get a job. What can happen to that student?
A school district, because of federal laws, a school district still would have to provide teaching to that student based on federal laws. But they're going to have to do it from home, or I don't know, the school district can figure that out.
Okay.
But I think it's important to protect our teachers because they are trying to teach a whole classroom of students, and to have one student or two, like what happened at Como Park High School, it disrupts the entire classroom for all the students. Quite frankly, it's not a job I would want to do. I would not want to be a public school teacher, and I have a huge admiration for those who are, and I just believe they need protection.
Well, thank you very much, Senator, for stopping by.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Look forward to hearing more about your bill.
Thank you. I appreciate it.